All righty.
Doug, hey, so I have a question to jump in with. Okay. When you first, and it couldn't have been that long ago because technology is relatively new, but in the last few years, when you went into the and down the path of applying AI to go to market, were you trying to solve a problem for you, or were you trying to solve a problem that someone was paying you to solve?
Yeah,
And what
yeah,
was the problem?
yeah. Well, Dean, that's a great question. I think it goes back, 5+ years, right? Right around COVID time. A little bit before that, I, started to learn about AI, and I started to try to figure out how can I make my life a lot more easier as a at the time, strategic salesperson for a cybersecurity company. How can I get more time back in my life? This was when I really was trying to phase myself out of this career. I wasn't happy anymore. My ADHD just didn't allow it anymore, right?
Yeah,
And
you were
um,
like in a sales role, you mean?
oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah,
So
that was my last corporate role, was an account executive. My last 2 jobs was and, like, I'd never earned more money in my corporate career than, as, like, an enterprise, like, software account exec, but, like, it was definitely not a job I should have ever been in at
no,
all. I don't know
that's
how I got it twice in 2 different companies, but, like, I was so unsuited to those jobs, like, it's not a job for, like, a guy in the spectrum, that's for sure.
yeah, 100%. And I didn't have a choice. I I needed to find a way for myself to make money quickly when I turned 18. Got into a first
Mhm.
sales role on Wall Street and moved to Massachusetts from New York City. I'm a New York native. And that's how I landed my first software sales job. In the beginning, it was fine. But as you know, being told what to do and strict deadlines and things like that doesn't really work very well with adults and ADHD, especially that you don't know at the time that you have it, right? I'm not trying to make this an ADHD episode, but just kind of shaping the story here. So fast forward to kind of like the final years of my career. um, was having a really hard time. I didn't have the success that I did over the course of the 15 years, 16 years that I was in the business. And I was just losing my fire, losing it. So I was trying to figure out, how can I automate what I do? How can I make things a lot easier? Fast forward to ChatGPT. When
Mhm.
OpenAI started marketing more, I started learning more about AI, even though I knew about machine learning for a long time, just being in cyber. It locked me in. I just got so excited about it and created GPTs, and I started automating myself, creating email campaigns, for sales sequences,
Amen.
analyzing transcripts so that I can understand how I could have done better, and more importantly, sentiment and how to write emails better, right? And so on and so forth. And it worked. It was
So
really good.
basically, spot treatment for a bunch of individual tactical problems. Like, at
Right.
what point did you like realize that you were starting to put things together into automated workflows and like systems?
Yeah. When I started to see where different departments like marketing and RevOps, they what they were giving us versus what we needed and what we were sharing, that intelligence back, just wasn't driving, right? It was just like everybody's perception of what they're being asked for was like completely different. So I started to figure out how to take in data sets from different areas to help kind of not only increase my conversions, right? But also with helping marketing, helping the company. So I spoke up a lot more, and a lot of the strategy refinements, things like that, saying, hey, maybe we should try this, and here's why. And when they would finally actually implement it, it would work. And that was that aha moment, right? That I got something here, that I think I know how to really truly work with AI and what I call create a symbiotic relationship between AI models and the human. And that's how I got to where I am today.
So these days, oh, if you're asked, like, can you just explain to me a lot of this, like interview, by the way, we'll pretend that I'm a CEO of like a mid-sized firm,
Sure, sure.
and I don't want, I want to be able to ask dumb questions and get smart answers so that when I talk to my own people, I don't have to ask dumb questions.
Right.
So how would you explain what an agent is to me in terms I would already understand without having like a grounding in AI?
Sure. Think of an AI agent as a software that can take a goal, take your strategy, then go out and gather the right context, use tools, and then make those recommendations and produce the work in a very structured way. On a human side, I always equate it to, remember when we could bring in interns from Ivy League schools,
Hmm.
really smart individuals, really gung ho to work, and you give them the context behind what you need done, and they'd go off and do it, and then you check their work. That's how I view an AI agent, right? That's how we construct AI agents today, to mimic the human workflow for a specific specialization.
All right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Though I had it explained to me because I'm looking for like alternate
Yeah, of course.
explanations and I'm asking a lot of people. Someone he was ex-army and he said to me, to him that is, uh, AI agents are the way that the army tells squads and platoons like what to do. Like you don't tell you'll like meet with the leader, the squad leader, where you guys will go. You will you will gain control from the enemy of the north end of this airport, and you will keep control of that airport and communicate back so that we can coordinate. He doesn't tell them the pathway to take. He doesn't even tell them like what weapons to use, right? He just gives the intention, and like there's a level of judgment and experience built into the process, like with
That's
the
right.
interns, right? And that's why it's different. The AI agents and AI automation is different from like the previous generation of automation, where
Correct.
like data would work its way through a system. If you're like one of those work steps and what you get isn't what you expected, uh, like you're either going to drop it or log it or God forbid break, right? And like,
That's right.
but it doesn't like, whereas like, but you can't like apply judgment to it. You don't have that ability to apply judgment to what's happening and figure out what the context should have been. Oh, this is missing a thing. And if I like do this, I can pass it along. Right.
Right. Right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it's like basically you can just give it an intent and it'll even help come up with the steps it's going to take. And then you can like turn it on and just start feeding it and it
And
will
then when you start,
apply limited judgment.
that's right. And then when you start to move into from single agent, single purpose
Right.
to multi-agent
Chains of them.
orchestration, where they're all working together with dependencies, um, reasoning teams, right? So judging teams. If it's something that's very crucial, do you want that to be reviewed by other models? It will have the ability to be able to do that. And, that's really where we're going with AI within enterprises, within even small businesses, right? Is small business owners, startups, and even enterprises, they need more than just a single point solution. They need to augment or to force multiply their entire departments because it's getting a lot harder out there. Take into account global issues, domestic economic issues, right? Hiring, just finding the right people. It's just a different world that we're in right now. And AI allows us to keep pushing forward.
On the one hand, there's a lot of people looking for jobs. On the other hand, there's a lot of people leaving the workforce from retirement or whatever, right? There are like literally fewer people that you could fit into a slot, even though you're getting 1,000 resumes for everything you post.
And it really is role dependent too, right?
Yeah.
Certain jobs are getting affected today by AI in a negative way. Engineering in particular, most engineers that have that symbiotic relationship that I discussed, right, are using AI to get themselves about 95% to 98% of the way. And, that deviation is for that human in the loop, right?
Yeah,
And
I
they're
saw
producing amazing products out of it.
something came out last week. How I think this was MIT that had done the study that senior software developers reported like big gains from using AI in coding, and junior ones reported almost no gains at all
That's right. Yeah.
because, like, to them, like, the AI is like a junior to mid developer. And so they, whereas the senior one can sort of understand and plan out and then like read the code after and realize, okay, here's what he did. Here's what, or if it's having problems, um, the AI is having problems with, some particular kind of code or feature, like that person's been around enough to know the likely causes, whereas a junior might not.
That's right. And that's
Not great to
why,
be a junior person though.
yeah, yeah. And but that's where that expertise comes into play. And we talk about this very often when, I'm not sure if this is a question that'll come up, but you see a lot of these projects fail, whether it's build versus buy, the products that are out there that are being funded extensively. Some of them are being created by engineers and technical folk that have no deep domain experience, or they haven't even invested in bringing those people in with the deep domain experience
Right.
on what they're building,
Hmm?
right? So when you talk about the junior versus senior, it's the same thing. Experience is going to trump over anything else. And that's the really important part for a lot of the builders out there, a lot of marketers, GTM operators, is that focus on what you do each and every day. Find those use cases that if you had that AI partner or partners for that matter, what is the work that you would want them to do that you can do within your sleep, but you can train them to do it with precision.
Now, a lot of AI go to market projects, you've seen lots of them start. I've seen lots of them
I've seen
start.
a lot.
Most of them um, don't finish, and they don't like blow up. They just sort of get quietly pushed aside or abandoned, or people start ignoring them and, not actually, doing it end to end and getting real value out of it. Why do most IT projects fail generally, but why do most AI go to market projects fail?
Well, you have to look at who's building them, right? Do they have the experience? Have they ever built anything? I mean, look, I'm one of them. I'm about 5 years in as an AI engineer, but I've educated myself in Python, in engineering, so on and so forth. I'll use the examples without naming names of the projects that I have seen, I have reviewed and or advised. And a lot of times it's a vibe coding scenario. They see a lot of the noise out there in Twitter and LinkedIn that you can create billion-dollar apps and software that in a weekend, vibe coding. But they don't realize once they start to see those, oh, we got bugs, right? Or, they can't figure out why each code review right after the next one keeps bubbling up a new issue, right? They don't do enough planning. And more importantly, they can't stay with. That's the thing, is that if you truly believe in what you're building, you're going to stick to it end to end. You're going to do the research that is needed to get you from point A to point B to point C and ask around. There's so much out there for you to get through it. There's also other tools. Don't just rely on the model. Go multimodal, right? Go out there, look for repos that are doing the same thing that you are in terms of building your team. The way we were able to overcome it was we built our own engineering AI team from end to end, all the way from helping us with ideation to research to the architecture, all the way down to the CI/CD and vulnerabilities and security reviews and everything in between. We built it from end to end to help us, but we still have engineers on staff, right? You cannot replace that experience, but you can speed it up. That's for sure.
Okay, so I made a note here with my, trusty little pen.
Mhm.
You used the term repo. So
Yes.
explain repo or repositories, explain GitHub, and explain what you were talking about, like go find a repo.
Yeah. So GitHub is where everyone stores their idea, right? Their program, their code,
Their source code.
their
Yeah.
source code, everything for that matter. And there are many repositories, repos out there in GitHub that are open to the public, sharing frameworks, sharing things that have worked for them. The big one right now is many people are using Claude code to build their products and may not have their system, their structuring, you know, built with best practices in mind. They may not be using harnesses, right? They may not using the latest and greatest in terms of context memory and so on and so forth. They can simply point to that repo, ask using the agent, review it, and see what is well. And what's the best word for it here is it's something along the lines of find what we can use within this framework that will help us move forward with better accuracy, precision, and confidence, right? Things like that. And that helps to build on what you've already created, to help you build.
Yeah. A lot of that code, AI wrote it, and you don't have to read them all to find what you need. You can literally point your AI and say, hey, just go search GitHub and find me, something that would like work for my situation, and let it come back with like the likeliest ones and what's good and bad about them and what it would take out of it and so on.
That's right.
All right, fair enough. Uh, so, like any system, any workflow, any automation, from the very first like early days of computing, the two, I read this book called The Mythical Man Hour. I think it was written in like the 60s or 70s. It's really old. I've been in software development a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And it had two sort of takeaway lines in it. And one was garbage in, garbage out.
That's right.
And the other one was sort of a tongue in cheek thing. Hey, if software is hard to make, it should be hard to use. You know, the guy was kidding about that, but it's a great line to remember. But like, what do you need to feed, and where would you feed from for an AI go-to-market system? Right? What do you need to put into it, and where are you going to get that stuff?
Yeah. Well, it depends, right? Are you building for yourself? Are you building for your client? Are you building for the company that you work for, right? And then it comes to permissions. Are they going to let you take some of that data or use some of that? But in short, it needs the same context that a operator would need. An operator meaning the person that is going to be running the AI agent. So we're talking about, and we'll stick to GDM here, but we're talking about CRM data, campaign data, website and search data. So think GA4, GSC, content performance. If you're doing performance marketing like Google Ads, LinkedIn Ads, etc., having that type of data in there is crucial. Then you're looking at buyer personas. Who are your who's your ICP, right? What do those customer profiles look like? If allowed, sales conversations. Those transcripts are gold. We have integrations into Read AI, Gong, etc., pulling in transcripts for some of our customers that allow it. And then what we come back with is absolute gold. And what I mean by that is you can find things like friction points that come up often that you can write content about that adds to the content that's needed for the buyer's journey. Improving sales calls, right? Identifying the sales reps where they're failing in terms of negative reversals, right? Things like that. Product positioning, buyer persona, and I'm now getting into the weeds here, but the most important thing is if you're writing content, brand guide. What does that voice look like? What feeding it content that is dialed in and calibrated to what the brand has chosen to sound like and their style. Those are really crucial as well. And then I can go on and on. But it sounds like a lot of context, but it literally takes you a morning to start putting that together. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Yeah. So a lot of that information and data in a company already exists. They're already
Yep.
capturing it. They're just really not purposing it towards anything, or they're expecting people to read it. Whereas you can let your AIs read it and use it as input and guides
That's right,
and and,
and
and
that's where you
guardrails.
see. Yeah, sorry, and guardrails, that's right, and I was gonna say that, and a good system is built assuming that it also has, and this is addressing the garbage in, garbage out, it's gonna have imperfect data. It's going to miss some of the context in regards to how a campaign behaved and performed because, let's say, it was a specific conference campaign or it's this campaign and it's not historically going to do what other campaigns would do, right? There's nuances that you have to give it. Those guardrails as well, what to say, what not to say. That's something I see overlooked all the time, where I think is really important for brands is to really truly have strong guardrails because that allows for the efficiency, right? Once you start getting into a point where you're processing 8 different content pieces in an hour, you want to make sure that those 8 drafts that come out are locked in. They're not saying things that you don't want to say. They're not bad mouthing or naming vendors, competitor vendors, and so on and so forth. But yeah, and then lastly, that human in the loop. For GTM in particular, I don't think we're there yet to be able to not have those approval gates. And the reason why is that this is all public facing. This is what is going to convert an audience to buyers. So you need to make sure that what you're putting out there doesn't have that AI slop writing, is not misrepresenting the brand and so on and so forth. And we see that a lot too when we do advise certain companies that want us to take a look. There's just like really easy just tweaks and having that human in a loop to look and look for specificity. And I think you start to get closer to automation.
Do you think? Uh, Explain to me like I'm a non-technical CEO. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, when should I take some or most or all of my go-to-market automation with AI, sprinkled throughout? When should I build that in-house, and when should I like just outsource as much of it as possible to an agency, for instance?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great.
What are the main criteria there?
Well, that that build versus buy scenario comes up very often when we
That
meet with.
has existed as long as software has existed.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And almost every time we get into a initial discovery meeting, they ask us, well, why can't we just build a GPT and do the same thing that you're doing? Why can't we do the same thing with Claude? Right? And I say, sure, you can. Let's talk about why we're here. You come to us because of lack of resources. You don't have the ability to spin up campaigns, content, manage social media the way it should, and so on and so forth with the internal team that you have in place today. The requirements or the resources needed to build a true agentic multi-agent orchestration across marketing, sales, and RevOps is going to require some expertise that you likely do not have in-house. So building it, yes, you certainly can, but limits you to how far you can go. Think APIs, think feeding it, tuning it, creating context graphs, so on and so forth. Then, when working with us, we've already built this system that has been battle tested across multiple different startups, from early stage, seed stage companies, all the way to publicly traded financial firms. Battle tested, tuned, tweaked, trained, whatever words you want to use in regards to keeping that producing the trustworthy outcomes each and every time a task comes in through Asana or Jira. That's what you're investing in. Think about this for a second. You send in a task for 3 email campaigns and 3 newsletters to cover the entire globe: North America, EMEA, and India. Do you believe that your system that you would build internally can turn those tasks around the minute the orchestrator hits it, depending on the queue, within 18 minutes with a full deliverable copy, wireframe, and an HTML mockup? Probably not, because it took time for us to train it to do this. So that's the benefit of working with frontier firms, or service as software, as they're calling it now, versus building it. We take that heavy lift off of your plate. We are the ones that worry about the training and the outcomes, and we deliver them to you.
Let's talk about salespeople for a second,
Oh yeah,
right? Because ultimately, GTM typically starts with marketing. If you follow the data and the flow, right? There's lead
100%.
gen and buying signals or intent signals and content generation and so on. Eventually, somebody progresses from a cold lead to a warm lead to a warm prospect and then a hot prospect, right? And once it
Mhm.
crosses the gap into sales.
Sure.
Uh, why, when salespeople or a sales team don't trust AI automation or orchestration for NGTM, why is it that they don't trust it? And like, how does that get addressed?
Well, you were a salesperson in your career
Yeah.
as well. You know, trust is earned, and trust is earned gradually over time as well. And with AI, you don't just walk in and say things like, the AI knows who you should call, so obey it, right? So, you should follow its lead. Most sellers I know would not do that. And the ones that would go ahead and start calling, they need a little more training, right? But you start by showing the evidence behind the recommendations. You may have heard about the glass box versus the black box in the AI SOC agent space. It's the same thing with what we're building and what others are. Is you need to show the evidence behind why it's recommending it, the reasoning. And in order to do that, that comes out, that is with the output when it's making that recommendation, and have it break that out for you so that the salesperson, or any person for that matter, can trust what it's recommending. Things like, why this account, what change, what signals are mattering, and what's the confidence level. And then the reps can give it feedback. So if the system can explain itself and then improve on the feedback that it's getting, you'll start to see adoption more and more across the sales organization. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go into a slightly more technical question here as we
Yeah.
finish up. Thanks again for joining me on this. I really appreciate your
Oh, I
patience
love
for
it.
my
I love it.
basic questions. Uh, one is, talk to me about multi-agent orchestration. Like,
Yeah.
how is that different than what we had even like a year and a half, 2 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah. I love the progression that's happening today with AI. It's just so exciting. Um, you got to think of multi-agent orchestration as, you don't just have one single point or generic AI, right? You have AI agents that do one highly specialized role, a specific job, and with multi-agent orchestration, they're working together, right? So I'll map out in more detail what that means, but in go to market, one agent might plan, another might research, another might analyze like paid media, another might write content and then synthesize the recommendations, and so on and so forth. And then lastly, one might prepare the report. So when you think of multi-agent orchestration, think of yourself as, you are basically putting into place a cross-functional AI team that can reason, that give you better quality control, right? Because us humans, we have we're easily distracted. And the work feels closer to like how real GDM teams operate, but with much more power, precision, and data, the ability to analyze more data and make sense of it. That's multi-agent orchestration. And if you'd like an example of what that looks like, look at Dropzone AI. Dropzone AI had one marketer at the time when we came in. Today, they only have 3 marketers on that team. And they've gone from Series A to seed to Series B, category leadership, still dominating the conversation, and have been able to do that because of multi-agent orchestration, supporting the marketing organization and the sales organization. Being able to push numerous campaigns, being in every corner of the cybersecurity world, we more often than not hear, I can't turn without
Yeah.
Dropzone AI, right? That's the beauty of it. And it just reduces your cost, right? Because you're taking those 3 marketers and you're giving them the ability to leverage AI to enable them to be able to operate like an enterprise funded, enterprise sized marketing organization.
And then I want to ask one more question, and then I want to
Yeah.
ask something about you. Okay.
Yeah.
So from a prediction model,
Mm.
right? The AI moves so fast. I mean, even this week, like, drops in stock prices, even with like decent results in some cases. When like where's like frontier models versus sort of asymmetric models
Oh
and
yeah.
the open source models, and like where's this going? Like what's got you excited for the next, let's say, 6 to 12 months?
You just said it. Those open source models, those small, those small language models that I can put on my 5090, right? Or in a
Yep.
Mac mini and
Yep.
be able to do just amazing things. Being able to train it myself, tune it. I mean, Hugging Face is a perfect example. They just came out with an ML agent intern that can help me tune my own model as if it was a machine learning engineer. I mean, come on. It'll do all the research, it'll process it for me, it'll tune it. There's just so much coming. And it happened so fast that if you don't have that finger on the pulse as an AI engineer, 2 weeks from now, you might be behind, right, in some of the latest innovations. And that's why it's really important to constantly be learning, reading the news, just being present, right? And I know that's hard for a lot of people, especially introverts, but this is a really important time in our lives, especially as creatives, people that can hyper focus, where we can take our ideas or our customers' ideas and bring it to fruition, make it a reality, and make a lot of money, right? I hate to bring that, but we are entrepreneurs. And that's the world that we're in right now. But those open source models like Quen and others, oh, so cool. So cool.
Kimmy, DeepSeek, mostly Chinese
Oh,
models, right? It's
yeah.
very the Chinese have taken an asymmetric approach. Like they don't have like the chips or the resourcing for
That's right.
various political and other reasons,
Yeah,
and so they like attack the models from like a different perspective. And
they
I
do.
like right, and so like the sort of American style. We can call it American style because like they're all that's the top 3 frontier models, as they're called, that everyone's heard of, Gemini and ChatGPT and Claude, or
Right.
the frontier models, right? They're they basically, we just throw money in compute and data centers, right?
Oh yeah.
And then the Chinese, what they do is they're doing, you know, I'm not saying one approach is right and one. I think you kind of need both, but they're like trying to find efficiencies at every layer, like the hardware
Yeah,
layer, the interpretation layer, like
that's
the
right.
whole thing, and what you can shrink down, because like, constraints are always going to breed creativity somewhere. And so it's a very sort of asymmetric attack approach to compete with the frontier models. And so we're getting to the point. I was having this conversation with someone yesterday. He wanted to know about what's next. And I said, we seem to be approaching the peak of the frontier models. And just
Mhm.
like to put this in perspective, a frontier model will have you can imagine, for someone watching, imagine there's like a giant wall of a machine, or remember anything you've ever seen from a music recording studio where they have all of these sliders and
Oh yeah.
dials, right? Each one of those sliders and dials is a parameter, we could call it,
Hmm.
right? In AI, or a weight, right? Parameters and weights, and we're like tweaking them to try to get like the optimal for what we want. And a frontier model like ChatGPT or any of the others I just mentioned would have at this point over 1 trillion
Yeah.
of those parameters and weights. And then but the open source models, regardless of where they come from, some from Europe, some from Asia, they'll have 7, maybe 10 or 11 billion, which is a
Hmm.
big difference than 1 trillion,
Correct.
right? But they're also and can be more and more specialized, which is why they'll fit on your phone and they'll do like tasks on your phone. You can put them
Hmm.
on like your own PC.
Hmm.
Mac Mini usually is the popular one if you can find one because they're being snapped up,
Everybody's been buying them
right?
these days.
Yeah, right. And so and you can think of the next generation of usage for AI. Starting off now is all of these like little AIs that are like dumber, but you don't need like 1 trillion parameter AI to like fix how data moves through your company
No,
and
you
sales
don't.
calls and customer calls get followed up, right? You can get by with a much smaller, basically free, dumber one, but it's really smart in that one or two things that you need it, and you need to just place all the little ones around where it would make sense, right?
That's it.
And then the third wave of that, which is coming on fast, and Amazon already does on AWS, is that just like you like basically rent cloud storage and you rent a web server to run your company's website on, you'll rent now, and more so, you'll rent AI.
Hmm.
And so you don't need expensive calls into like the guys who have been losing hundreds of millions or billions and soon have to raise their prices in order to try to recoup some of that loss, right? You can just like spin up your own, have your own little dumb one, but it lives up in the cloud next to a web server,
Right.
right? And that becomes like your chat, in a model when customers come, hey, can I help you with something, kind of thing,
Hmm.
right? Or all of the other stuff on the back end you're not seeing, managing your databases and whatever.
Hmm.
And so you just rent it like you'd rent like a web server or rent cloud storage. It's just like another thing that's like added into it. And so, we're moving past like the ultra hype trillions of dollars in like
I agree.
expected data centers. Like most of that I saw last week, 40% of that's been canceled.
Yeah.
We were never going to have enough electricity to run all those data centers. And then Google coming out with 2 chips yesterday,
Yeah.
announcing, right, 2 tensor chips, which are basically like chips that are made specifically for AI, as
AI.
opposed to GPUs, which were made for gaming and visuals, and were like sort of like also used for AI. And so you get these tensor cell chips. And so all along, whether it's like the stack and efficiencies everywhere, or chips specifically made just for AI that don't do anything else except run AI, and then being able to just have your open source models and being able to just rent AI access like you'd rent like a web server,
That's right.
right? We're getting to that point where these like the super big, super hype models and like, the like threat, which is never going to happen, of AGI is sort of calming down and fading away.
Yeah.
And then, and then we enter the, there's going to be like, whatever, like retreats in the market from the biggest, the most expensive stuff. But the next 2 generations of this stuff, which are happening almost at the same time, right? Your own little AIs in the places you need them,
Yep.
on prem, even in your building or office or whatever, and then and rent it from a cloud, right? That's coming on fast, and that's going to like really open up what you can do, all kinds of possibilities.
Yeah,
It's
and that
fascinating. Like, this stuff just moves so fast.
it moves so fast, and that goes back to you have to have your finger on the pulse. You have to
Yeah.
just
Or you
set
have to be
yourself
paying someone to keep their finger on the pulse.
right, exactly,
Mm.
exactly, and
Okay.
yeah,
Now, as we wind down, thanks again for being here, because I know I've like pushed you with some really uh, simplification kind of like tasks to make sure
sure,
everyone can
yeah,
understand. Tell folks about you and what you do, who you work for, and how they
yeah,
can get in touch with you.
yeah. Well, I'm Doug Gotay. I am the co-founder and CEO of Cubic Squared. Cubic Squared is a service as a software company, which is where we're building the AI operating system for go-to-market teams. Um, We're not a traditional agency. And we identified that most go to market teams do not need any more dashboards or any more point solutions. So we built an intelligent system that can understand the business, coordinate work across sales and marketing today. And we're moving into RevOps in just a few months, that can surface the right opportunities, build your brand awareness, manage your social media, and everything in between with the speed and consistency of your smartest, most experienced GTM operators. And that's who we are. You can reach me directly on LinkedIn or at cubicsquared.ai.
All right. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate this. This was fantastic.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun.
Any last comments or parting comments before we wind down?
Yeah, I always share this. When I speak with a group or in a podcast, is look, if you're a marketer or a salesperson today, you're doing yourself a disservice if you're not taking a moment to learn how to use AI more than just a one prompt, one shot approach. Learn how to work with it. Learn how it can be your partner. And I can tell you the way things are changing today, the future roles are not a marketing manager. It's going to be a AI marketing operator. And that's the truth. We're seeing it today. So lots of great education, free education out there. And if you need any pointers, you can reach out to me directly. I'm happy to have a chat.
All right. Sounds great. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Later.
Later.